The cafeteria was always loud, chaotic, and filled with the noise of clinking trays, gossiping voices, and the sharp screech of metal chairs dragging across the tiled floor. For most students, it was just another part of their daily routine, an hour of food, laughter, and chatter before returning to boring lectures. But for Emma Carter, the cafeteria felt like a battlefield she had to cross every single day. Emma was 16, shy, quiet, and often overlooked. Her long brown hair usually covered half of her face, and she preferred sitting in corners where no one noticed her. But even in hiding, she wasn't safe, not from the bullies who had made her life a living nightmare. Emma wasn't weak, she just didn't believe in fighting back. She carried her books close to her chest, walked fast through the hallways, and avoided confrontation at all costs. But bullies always sensed fear like predators smell blood, and for months, a group of popular students had targeted her relentlessly. It started with whispers. Snide comments about her clothes, her silence, the fact that she didn't have expensive makeup or flashy friends. Then it escalated to tripping her in the hallways, stealing her homework, and dumping juice on her backpack. But nothing compared to what would happen on that fateful day in the cafeteria, the day that would change everything, the day that would expose them in front of the world. The bell rang for lunch, and Emma reluctantly made her way to the cafeteria. She gripped her tray tightly, her hands slightly trembling, as she searched for an empty corner. She never dared to sit in the center where the popular crowd ruled like kings and queens. Her eyes darted around nervously, scanning for a safe spot. But just as she began to move toward a quiet table near the back, a loud voice called out, echoing across the noisy room. "Hey, loser! Where do you think you're going?" It was Jessica Miller, the self-proclaimed queen bee of the school, flanked by her loyal followers, Brittany, Kyle, and Marcus. They were rich, arrogant, and cruel, the kind of kids who thought the world revolved around them. Jessica, with her flawless blonde hair and designer outfit, sneered at Emma with venom in her eyes. The cafeteria hushed slightly, everyone sensing that something was about to happen. Emma froze in her tracks, her heart hammering inside her chest. Jessica smirked and stood up, striding toward Emma with calculated confidence. "What's this? Our little mouse trying to eat lunch in peace? Not on my watch." Her friends laughed, egging her on. Emma tried to walk away, but Jessica blocked her path. Kyle snatched Emma's tray and dumped the food onto the floor, causing laughter to ripple across the cafeteria. Emma's cheeks burned red with humiliation as she bent down to pick up the mess. Her hands shook, and she felt tears stinging her eyes. But Jessica wasn't done. She leaned in, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You know what's wrong with you, Emma? You hide behind your hair, behind your silence. Maybe you need a little attention." Before Emma could react, Jessica's hand shot forward, yanking Emma's bra strap from under her shirt and snapping it hard against her back. The sound echoed cruelly in the silent cafeteria, followed by roars of laughter from the bullies and gasps from the bystanders. Emma gasped in pain and humiliation, clutching her chest as her face turned crimson. It was a violation, a moment so degrading that she wished the ground would open up and swallow her whole. But worse than the pain was the laughter, the way everyone looked at her, not with sympathy, but with curiosity, as if she were a spectacle to be mocked. For a moment, Emma stood frozen, paralyzed by the shame coursing through her. Her hands trembled, her throat ached, and her vision blurred with unshed tears. She turned and ran out of the cafeteria, her footsteps echoing down the hallway as the bullies laughed behind her. What none of them realized was that above them, mounted on the ceiling corner, was a security camera, silent, watchful, recording every second of the cruelty. The footage would later become the very weapon that turned the tables on the bullies, but at that moment, Emma didn't know. All she knew was pain. She locked herself in a bathroom stall, sobbing quietly. She hated herself for crying, hated that she couldn't stand up for herself. She replayed the moment in her head over and over, the laughter, the humiliation, the snap of the bra strap. It wasn't just bullying, it was an assault on her dignity, her identity. Minutes later, a soft knock came at the bathroom door. "Emma? Are you okay?" It was Sarah, a kind-hearted classmate who had always admired Emma's quiet strength from afar. Unlike the others, Sarah wasn't afraid of standing against the bullies, but she had always hesitated, unsure of how to intervene. Now, seeing Emma so broken, she felt a surge of courage. Emma sniffled, wiping her tears, and finally opened the door. Sarah's eyes softened as she saw the red mark on Emma's shoulder. "They can't get away with this," Sarah whispered. "This isn't just bullying anymore. It's harassment. It's abuse." Emma shook her head. "No one will believe me. They never do. It's their word against mine." But Sarah smiled knowingly. "Not this time. There are cameras in the cafeteria. They caught everything." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Cameras? She hadn't even thought about that. A glimmer of hope sparked within her, fragile but real. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The humiliation haunted her, but so did Sarah's words. Maybe, just maybe, the truth would come out. Maybe the bullies would finally face consequences. But Emma was terrified. What if exposing them only made things worse? What if they retaliated? The next day, she walked into school with trembling hands, her eyes downcast. But something was different. Whispers followed her through the hallway, not the usual cruel jokes, but murmurs of shock. Students glanced at her, then at the cafeteria. Something had changed. When she reached her locker, Sarah ran up to her, breathless with excitement. "Emma! You won't believe it, the security footage. The principal saw it. They know what Jessica and her gang did." Emma froze, her heart pounding. What happened?" Sarah grinned. "They're in trouble. Big trouble. And this time, no one can protect them. The whole school is talking about it." Emma's knees felt weak, but for the first time in a long time, it wasn't from fear, it was from relief. The truth was finally coming to light. The news spread like wildfire through the school corridors. What had happened in the cafeteria was no longer just a rumor, it was undeniable truth caught on camera. The principal had reviewed the footage, and word quickly leaked out that the bullies who had tormented Emma were now under investigation. For the first time in her life, Emma wasn't walking through the halls as an invisible target, she was walking as the quiet center of attention. Some students looked at her with pity, others with guilt for laughing the day before, and a few with admiration that she had endured so much. But Emma wasn't thinking about any of that. She was still shaken, still reliving the humiliation in her mind, but now she clung to the fragile thread of justice. That afternoon, she was summoned to the principal's office. Her hands trembled as she sat across from Principal Anderson, who wore a grave expression. On his desk, the computer screen was paused on the cafeteria footage, Jessica's hand mid-motion, snapping Emma's bra strap with a cruel smirk frozen on her face. Emma's stomach twisted seeing it replayed, but at the same time, it felt strangely validating. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't exaggerating. The proof was undeniable. "Emma," Principal Anderson said gently, "I know this is difficult for you, but you need to understand something. What they did to you was not only against school policy, it was against the law. This is harassment and assault. You have the right to press charges." The words hit Emma like a thunderbolt. Press charges? Against Jessica and her gang? She could already imagine the retaliation, the whispers, the anger from their powerful parents. But then Sarah's voice echoed in her head, "They can't get away with this." Emma's eyes welled with tears, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from strength she didn't know she had. She nodded slowly. I want to press charges." That single decision set everything into motion. The next week was a whirlwind of chaos. Police officers arrived at the school to review the footage and interview witnesses. Jessica and her friends, once untouchable, now looked pale and shaken as they were escorted out of class. The cafeteria was buzzing with whispers when the arrests happened. Phones recorded from a distance as Jessica shouted at the officers, insisting her father was a lawyer and she'd get out of this easily. But the officers didn't flinch. The evidence was too strong. Emma sat quietly with Sarah in the counselor's office as the scene unfolded outside. For the first time, Emma didn't feel like prey anymore. She felt like someone who had survived the storm. The case quickly gained traction. Parents were outraged, the school board demanded accountability.